Hi, my name is Eleanor Zacharia, and this is my community service project on Friends of Night People, a shelter in Buffalo. The organization Friends of Night People is a shelter that provides food, clothing, and medical services to those that are living in or below poverty. The shelter provides daily dinners, food pantry multiple times a month, and clothing closet, where individuals are provided with shoes, socks, toiletries, and more. Throughout my experience, I volunteered for dinner shifts, clothing closet, and food pantry for multiple days to fulfill my service learning requirement. Each day I was presented with a different task and able to serve the community in multiple different ways. For the dinner shifts, I was able to assist in serving, preparing, and waiting on people in the dining room. During the daily dinner, the clothing closet is also open, which gave me the opportunity to spend time in the closet assisting residents of the community in finding the articles of clothing they needed. The photos provided are images I took during my experience in the clothing closet. Patrons would take a number and have a seat in the chairs along the wall. They would then wait for their number to be called. Once we called their number, they would come to the counter and give us their name. We'd search for the card with their name on it to keep track of the date they came and how many articles of clothing they take. People are allowed to come twice a month to the clothing closet and may take 6 items at a time, 1 pair of shoes, and unlimited amounts of toiletries. The food pantry was another activity I took part in many times in my volunteer experience with Friends of Night People. The pantry is offered multiple times a month on Tuesday nights for the public. They may only come twice a month, and the pantry distribution is based on a point system. When a member of the community comes in, they go through a screening and check-in process. They must fill out a form stating their name, residency, and members of their family. Based on the number of members in their family, they are given points to spend within the pantry. Items are worth different amounts, such as eggs are 2 points, milk is 2 points, meats are worth 3 and sometimes 4 points, depending on the product. The customer shops through the pantry using carts as displayed in the photo, and they may choose from the items in the pantry using the points allotted. Once they are finished, they may take any 5 items off of the shelf displayed at the end. These items are essentially free and require no points. Bread is also free, and they may take as much as they would like. My service learning experience took place at Friends of Night People, a shelter designed for not only homeless individuals, but also for those living in or below poverty. Throughout my time completing my service learning hours, I believe that I have touched on many objectives for the course. One objective I believe pertains to my experience is course objective number 1, as it describes the use of evidence-based practice to improve health in the population. During my time at the shelter, I had an opportunity to educate a diabetic during dinner when he was displaying symptoms of hypoglycemia. I had him sit down and got him orange juice and some crackers to help bring his blood sugar up. I educated him on the importance of meals when using insulin, and that he needs to ensure that he is tracking his meals and blood sugar throughout the day. I was able to collect information about his home life and doctor visits to determine if he was managing his condition. I stayed with him until he was better, educating him on the symptoms of low blood sugar and how to treat it quickly. When I reflect back at my experience at Friends of Night People and the required course objectives in the class syllabus, I realize my experience also touched on course objective number 2. Course objective number 2 focuses on collaboration with the interdisciplinary public health team to determine the needs and interventions to improve the quality of public health. Throughout my experience, I spent much of my time talking with the paid employees at the shelter to learn more about the organization and what services they offer. I was able to do this by asking them questions about the population they serve and what the needs are the most. I was able to determine the services provided at the shelter that related to medical needs, where I found out that medical eye exams are provided on a monthly basis. For the duration of my service learning hours, I collaborated with many members of the public health team that work for this organization to determine where I could assist in providing services to improve health in the population we were serving. During my experience, I was determined to discover what the most prominent issues were within the population whom I was serving at the shelter. My method for doing so was through my natural assessment skills as a nurse and interviewing those that volunteer at the organization regularly or are paid employees. Through these methods, I determined one of the biggest problems for those that I was serving was drug and alcohol use. Many of the people who came into the shelter were visibly intoxicated or under the influence of illegal substances or alcohol. Through interviewing the staff, it was confirmed that many people that do come in are frequent users of alcohol and even drugs. As I spent more time at the shelter, I noticed areas of provided education materials displayed in the photo provided for various topics that may be useful for the people coming in. The wall was full of pamphlets of educational material for drug use, alcohol, HIV and AIDS, and more. Some pamphlets were provided in Spanish language to accommodate those who do not speak English. However, I believe improvement can be made upon these pamphlets as they are not suitable for those with low literacy. I was able to determine the relevance of the health issue presented by interviewing the staff that works within the organization and also those that volunteer often. I also learned that they currently did not have a social worker, as the one they had prior had quit. This is a major issue because social workers play a key role in providing services to individuals such as those that are using alcohol and drugs that would assist them in the process of getting clean. This makes helping improve the population health in this realm difficult and needs to be addressed. This is where the help from volunteers such as myself come in, as I can assist in providing education to the members of the community suffering from drugs and alcohol use. As I discovered that one of the most prominent health issues within the community that I was helping serve is drug and alcohol use, I began to think about possible interventions and education that I could provide to help mitigate this issue. Something that must be considered for this population is low literacy skills. Through research, I determined that the CDC has provided a guide to creating education materials for low literacy populations. I would begin this process with screening, asking those that attend the Friends of Night People to fill out a simple form. It can be anonymous, asking if they use any form of drugs and alcohol, and if so, how often. Next to the lockbox I would provide for submission of the form, I would have simple pamphlets to provide information about both drugs and alcohol. According to the CDC, it is important to only provide one educational material at a time. Learning this, I would provide 2 separate pamphlets, one for drug use and one for alcohol, with simple statements that provide education. To evaluate the effectiveness, I would review the screening form results without any education provided. I would then evaluate the screening forms after implementation of the educational pamphlets I created to determine how many users of drug and alcohol there are still left within this community. The Friends of Night People experience I had was much different than what I initially expected. The first night I volunteered, I chose to sign up for food pantry and did not know what to expect. What I initially knew about a food pantry was that it was an area with non-perishable items only, such as cans and bags of rice, pasta, and so on. When I arrived at the food pantry at Friends of Night People, a volunteer began explaining the process to me. I was shocked to find out that this was just like going to a grocery store. They had fresh eggs, milk, yogurt, meats, and other frozen meals to provide for the members of the community that came in. It allowed for them to have a semi-normal shopping experience as they would if they were to go to an actual store. The pantry even provided mini shopping carts for them to use to collect their items and provided a bagging station at the end of the pantry. I then found out that many largely known supermarkets such as Tops and Wegmans donate bread and other perishable items that we can provide at the shelter's pantry. I was fascinated by all of this information and learned that the food pantry was so much more than just cans donated by people within the community. Even large supermarkets and local businesses were participating in providing food for those who need it in the population. This concludes my service learning project. Thank you for watching.